What's up, everybody? I am back with a new movie review and continue on with. I still kind of consider it an Avengers film, but the next Avengers film, Captain America Civil War. Before I continue, please do me a huge favor and leave a like to this video. Comment below, let me know what you guys think of the movie, and do you remember like your favorite parts, what you disliked about it, if you can find anything to dislike about it, and definitely sub to the channel. Now, this movie is clearly based off of the mid 2000s Marvel comic event, Civil War, and I'll be covering that comic right after this. Luckily, the event wasn't that crazy long, and I didn't waste any time with the tie-ins. So, it was this movie has been directed and written by the Russo brothers, and it of course stars Chris Evans, Captain America, RDJ, Iron Man, Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, Sebastian Stan as Winter Soldier, Anthony Mackie, Falcon, Don Cheadle, War Machine, Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye. The introduction, at least a lot of people's first introduction to Chadwick Boseman, the late Chadwick Boseman, for Black Panther, who he knocked it out of the freaking park. Paul Bettany as Vision, Elizabeth Olsen, Wanda Maximoff, Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, Emily Van Camp as Sharon Carter, and we got the introduction of Peter Parker and Aunt May with Marissa Tomei and Tom Holland. Frank Grillo as Brock Rumlow. Martin Freeman is introduced here as Everett K. Ross. The late William Hurt as Thaddeus Ross, no relation. And we got the introduction of Daniel Bruhl as Helmut Zemo, probably a lot of people's favorite Marvel villain, at least one of their favorite Marvel villains. As a matter of fact, if you watch my video of me ranking all the MCU villains, I rank Zemo pretty high. Because, as we'll go over in a minute, how well he is just like the smart, one of the smartest villains in, at least in my opinion, in general, one of the smartest movie villains. In terms of the MCU, he is definitely, or at least superheroes films in general, he ranks very high in terms of a smart villain, a well thought out villain, and to an extent a very sympathetic one. But anyway, so now that we got like this new crop of Avengers with, you know, Falcon and Scarlet Witch, of course they ain't going by Scarlet Witch, but for the sake of the argument, Scarlet Witch, and they're tracking down Rumlow, who is stealing like a biological weapon. Now we can see like the team operating a very well-oiled machine. At this point, it's like a year after the whole situation with Sokovia, so they had, you know, plenty of time to coordinate, you know, properly. And so Rumlow tried to do like a pretty much like a kamikaze type of mission, where he tries to blow himself up, trying to take down Rogers with him, but Scarlet Witch managed to contain the blast and try to shoot it in the air, but unfortunately it didn't go high enough where it, you know, the energy is released and it crumbled part of a building, which uh, killed, a good portion of innocent civilians. Uh, several of them being Wakandans on a humanitarian mission. So this gets the Wakandans involved deeply. So now is an international incident where Ross had to call in, pretty much all the Avengers except for Thor, who's off doing his own thing with, it's running parallel with Thor Ragnarok at this point, and along with Hulk doing their thing. And then, of course, Hawkeye is retired after the Sokovia mission, supposed to be his last mission. It was successful, relatively, despite losing Quicksilver. So, what we have here is, all that's left of the, Avengers with some new recruits like Vision and Scarlet Witch. And then, of course, like, War Machine along with Falcon. And Ross had, expressed like, look, the world over owes you a great debt because you averted cataclysmic catastrophes, but you pretty much are vigilantes operating on your own, operating on your own. And majority of you are U.S. based. So the UN is looking at America is like, we got to corral these people, because he then started putting up images of what happened during the fight in New York, what happened in Sokovia, what happened during the Winter Soldier movie with those shield helicarriers crashing down and trying to take down Hydra. And then in the more recent event over in it was in Largos when they dealt with Rumlow, and this is one of those key things that people point out in terms of separating the cons from the pros out of this movie. And one of the biggest cons that people have about this movie, and still rings true, is the fact that aside from the whole Sokovia situation, because Tony was one that built the dang robot that caused all this thing. But by and large, what happened in New York, that was, I guess some people might blame Thor because that was his brother kind of caused all this stuff. But but that is just like, he has no control over that, what his brother does on his own accord. And the fact that he brought aliens down on Earth, so it's like, he did not. It's like the Avengers had no control over what happened with that. And then with the whole helicarrier crashing down, that is like Hydra that, Cap and Black Widow and Nick Fury and Falcon had to deal with. I guess a real world argument could be like, oh, well, the Winter Soldier was pretty much the Hydra's little A1 goon, which so happens to be Cap's best friend. But you still, like I said, it's no the correlation causation kind of thing. It's like Cap had nothing to do with it. He didn't even know at the time that Bucky was even alive. And they have to do what they have to do in order to take down Hydra. Otherwise, they will literally annihilate a good portion of people that they deem that might be a serious threat to their rule. What? So what else? It's like, besides the whole Largos thing, once again, they have to stop Rumlow, and they tried to contain the blast, but I guess the wound's still fresh. They, the greater society would not allow as an excuse that, oh, uh, we tried, but the containment fell apart. It wouldn't be a good excuse. I mean, and the one was still fresh. What else? It was like all these big events. Um, yeah, but point being that they're not like the root cause of it all, outside of maybe Ultron. Uh, but people are scared. They don't know. Uh, they're scared or frustrated. They don't know what might come about if you just let all these superpowered beings just run amok. Well, they might feel like they're running amok, but they just go where they're pretty much like first responders. But the UN believes they need to be uh, monitored. Have some type of uh, hierarchy, or at least people that they have to answer to, just like any like military or any like any physician or any cop. There is like a person that they have to, if something goes wrong, like a bad shooting or whatever, they got a superior they got to answer to. But this ends up dividing the Avengers, because either they don't, if it's going to go into effect, the UN is going to make this into law essentially. So either you retire and don't be a superhero no more, or you sign an accords and be pretty much like working for the government. Now, the Avengers go and just have this big, heated discussion. Of course, Tony is like kind of, fed up, because in combination of him still feeling guilty with the whole creating Ultron because of his hubris, because he just wants to, he always jumps the gun, because it's like he's a futurist. I was like, look, we need to put a shield around the world. That's why I created Ultron. But he went crazy, and now a country is partially devastated because I'm the one that built him. And then on top of that, while he was giving like a speech at a college, this woman who is played by a woman who's going to be, around this time, going to be one of the main villains in Luke Cage TV show. And it's like, that still kind of like, a little bit bothers me, because like, I mean, of course she showed up here first before the Luke Cage show was a thing. Whoever like hired her, or at least was the showrunners of Luke Cage, should have gotten somebody else. I'm not saying she's not a great actress, but it's like you guys can't seem to be running out of actors to select, so you keep recycling them, and it's kind of annoying personally. That to this day, that still kind of bothers me. It's like, you're Mariah Stokes. You're more remembered for Luke Cage than your moment in here. But she is the movie's representation of this lady in the comics who was white there, but the aesthetic is still the same, where she lost her child during that incident in Largos. Was it Largos? Yeah, Lagos. And so she lost a child there who was on like a humanitarian trip that summer to help out and everything like that. So he shows a picture to the team, And matter of fact, Sandman and Rhodey had the probably like the most heated argument out of all of them in that room. But uh uh Tony, he's all aboard of like, because he feels like he needs to be kept in check. So he pretty much like, essentially forcing everybody else's hand to be like, look, we need like, keep this team together, but we need to be checked, because we can't just go around just cowboying up every little thing, because innocent people get hurt, and then we know different from the bad guys. And then Vision chimes in to be a little bit more logical, saying that ever since Tony announced his identity as Iron Man, there's been like a rise in people seeking to challenge us. Everybody wants to prove themselves. Everybody, probably got a gripe with us, and in order to combat any of us, there will generate conflict, and then innocent people's lives might be in danger. And of course, Wanda's still feeling pretty guilty about what happened, because she didn't mean to, cause like that level of destruction. Or she tried to avert the destruction, but she couldn't. She wasn't skilled enough at this time. I'm pretty sure peak Wanda, that by the time at the end of Scarlet, the WandaVision show, and the beginning of, or at least during the Doctor Strange 2 movie, she'd be at peak Scarlet Witch, where she could have easily handled that situation no problem, or just erase it altogether without any kind of type of explosion. But she's still pretty much like a novice at her powers. And Black Widow, you can see she found like a family in a sense in the Avengers, and she clearly desperately wants to keep it together. Because if you've seen the Black Widow movie, which will by the end of this movie will tie into her own little movie, the fact that her family is kind of like a bit of a mess, but she found like a new family, and that she wanted to desperately try to keep it close knit. But she feels silently, of course, probably, at least as she puts it, one hand on the steering wheel at least is better than no hands at all. And Cap, express to everybody that these people that'll be above us will be these type of politicians with different agendas. What if we need to go somewhere and they won't let us go? What if they send us somewhere that we shouldn't go? Politicians have different politicians have different agendas, and we will be misused. The choice should be in our hands, and we can't just sign away our rights. As a matter of fact, I want to bring up, if you watch the YouTube channel Legal Ego, one of my favorite episodes, because he's a lawyer, one of my favorite episodes of him is him reviewing the part about the Accords, and how like that is essentially not legal in a way, because signing away your rights is equivalent to like, because it is basically most of these I probably should have rewatched the video, because I'm going by memory at this point. But basically, like typically, like in the comics, most superheroes have like a secret identity. Now, of course, in the movies, hardly anybody besides maybe Spider-Man uh well, we don't get Moon Knight until much later, but you know what I'm saying. Most people have like certain identities, they have lives and everything like that. And essentially, you being forced into military subscription, or just because you know have like a superpower, and you might not even choose to use or be a superhero. You just want to live your life, but because you might display ability to fly or something like that, you just gotta sign and register, and essentially getting tagged in a way, so the government can always have like an eye on you in just in case, and that is a breach of privacy. That's what he was driving at too. Is essentially a breach of privacy, which is against the law. Especially a lot of these superheroes are U.S. based, and under the context of the law, you can't force anybody to be a part of your as like essentially your spec ops just because they got some special gift that they don't even plan on using properly. So all intents and purposes, none of this is legal. They can't be forced, because the Avengers are pretty much like are essentially rescue workers in a way. At most, like firefighters. Anyway, Steve ends up getting a text from Sharon, who we met in the Winter Soldier movie, that Peggy Carter passed away. And then we get a moment where at the eulogy, we get Sharon Carter. And I didn't pick up on this until I rewatched this. She at least partially quotes Captain America's iconic line in the comics about playing your feet to the ground like a tree, and it's on in a tree of truth or something like that. Like if someone tells you to move and he's like, you put your feet down and you tell them no, you move. I'm butchering it, but you can look it up. It's a very iconic Captain America quote, and not so subtly trying to give the audience like Cap gonna be more resolute in his decision and not signing away his rights, and he believes in like superheroes should have the ability to choose whether or not they want to help and not be forced to be sent off against their will to places if they don't want to or feel like their needs to be met someplace else. Then we see like the villain Zemo, take it down like a Hydra, like a lying in wait, just lying and hiding, just hiding away this old Hydra agent who he tortures and steals this book from him. Then the UN comes together, where we meet King T'Chaka and Prince T'Challa, who wants to make the Sokovia Accords into law, and getting ready for everybody to sign. But then an explosion goes off nearby. Plenty of people are injured. A lot of people are dead, including King T'Chaka, which puts T'Challa in the seat of the throne. So he swears vengeance on Bucky Barnes because since Zemo, we find out later he's using like a, one of those like face mimicry thing that I believe Black Widow used in the Winter Soldier movie to pretend to be Bucky Barnes, so he can carry out his plan while distracting the law enforcement. So pretty much a massive warrant is going out for Bucky Barnes. Thanks to Sharon, Cap figure out where Bucky is. He goes to try to bring him in alive because he knows everybody else is shooting to kill. Bucky still trying to, he's still suffering the effects of the. Well, it's not, dominant, but he still have the bit of the mind control, maturing candidate type of thing in his mind. So he's trying to isolate himself. The goons, like at least the military eventually show up and try to break in, and Captain Bucky, neutralize them pretty easily in an awesome display of fight choreography. Matter of fact, while I'm speaking on the subject, the fight choreography in this is amazing. The practical effects is amazing. The movement, we see T'Challa, Cap, and Bucky run down the road where a bunch of cars is just riding by, and they just gunning it, and you see like Bucky grab hold of a motorcyclist and just whip himself over onto the seat and just starts driving without losing momentum. It's just like dope display. That entire little scene is just like an amazingly shot. Probably my favorite scene in the entire film. So we see Black Panther in his Black Panther armor trying to take on Bucky. Basically two super soldiers going at it. But all the military and the police eventually surround him, along with War Machine, who holds all three of them at gunpoint. It's like, everybody stand down and surrender. So they bring them all in. Bucky is put in a containment while Stark and Rogers have a conversation where Rogers is not happy with the fact that Tony got Scarlet Witch in the Avengers compound, but pretty much like a pretty prison in a sense. She can't go nowhere because people are afraid of her, which kind of hints at the whole, well, at least they didn't even know at the time, but it's kind of really setting up, or at least you can see through the totality of Wanda's arc that you can see why people could be afraid of mutants because of something like we see with Scarlet Witch. Some might argue they didn't really handle that well by the end of WandaVision getting into Doctor Strange 2. I can see their point, but I don't think I'm too bothered because they did probably drop the ball in a couple of areas that could have interconnected better. So there's no question. But I could definitely see the overall arc of this character where because he has no real control, all that control over these powers. She can control it, but she's still in the beginner stage that is slowly creeping into intermediate, and then by the time of Endgame getting to WandaVision, she's approaching expert level, getting into expert level by the end of the show, if I can put it in video game terms. So Roger's not too happy with that. And it's like, dude, she's a kid. We can't. And it's like, kid, 23 at best, dude. Because it's like, kid. I was like, this girl could easily, at this point in time, could easily be like 23, 24. I was like, she's not really a kid. But I guess 100-year-old man, everybody's a kid to him. Heck, you can even call like Thunderbolt Ross a kid by comparison to Rogers. But then Zemo killed and put himself in the disguise of the therapist that's supposed to have been interrogating Bucky Barnes. But the book that he stole from that ex-Hydra agent has these code words that he can say to the Winter Soldier, so he can get inside his head and be under his control. So he can, because he needs specific information that at this point in time only the Winter Soldier wouldn't fully know. Then, to cover his tracks while he's trying to escape, send the Winter Soldier on a rampage. So while everybody's trying to contain, like, deal with, Sharon Carter, Black Widow, and T'Challa tries to deal with the Winter Soldier. Of course, he's brainwashed, so he's really not there, and they're all these guys are expert fighters, and they're having a tough time with this one guy. Even like Tony, because I love this little thing, his little watch that he just kind of folds over so he can have like a small little repulsor gauntlet because he doesn't have access to his armor at the ready. But it's still shocking to me that he learns clearly some moves. So he put his armored hand over the gun and dude fired it. Dude was literally gonna shoot him in the face. It's like the gun went off and there's the shock expression on Tony's face. Gets me every time. I was like, dude, you was got to shoot me. But Tony easily get knocked aside because he's not an expert fighter like that. He nearly gets away, but thanks to Rogers catching up to him at the time and dude holding, you can see like Chris Evans' workout routine where he's holding on to one end of the helicopter the Winter Soldier tried to escape with and the helipad guardrail, and you just see him just flex. It's like, we get it. You worked out in an insane degree. We see the muscles. But the helicopter crash, which allowed Rogers to escape with an unconscious Bucky, where Sam he walks out during the chaos as well and meets up with Steve, where Bucky wakes up with his arm in a vice, so he can't really escape, just in case he's still brainwashed. But he's coming to and he's himself again, and he tells them that this guy, was the one who caused the bombing, and he wanted some information because it turns out I'm not the only Winter Soldier. The Russians actually managed to make a handful more. That is pretty much like under stasis, and if any more like him get out in the world, this guy, if he somehow decides to use them because he has the words necessary to control them, put them under his thrall, he can do some serious damage to a lot of government infrastructures. We see, like, we know what Bucky has done as the Winter Soldier, and the level of turmoil he managed to produce over the years whenever he's deployed is unprecedented. Matter of fact, the only person actually he only failed twice, once with like Steve Rogers and another by Isaiah Bradley, who during the Vietnam War era, when he was we find out during the Falcon and Winter Soldier TV show, he was experimenting on it, so he was the first black Captain America. And so it typically takes Captain America like people in order to take down a Winter Soldier, or somebody of greater power. Um, but they realize that because they refuse to sign and they escape with Bucky, a fugitive, they know Ross and Tony are going to be sending, those who signed to go look for them. So Sam gets an idea. They begin recruiting Paul Rudd's Ant-Man into the mix because, there's like a small cameo in the first Ant-Man movie where he tussled with Sam Wilson. So they got their side because they need to make it to the airport. This is an abandoned airport where there's like a Quinjet stash, so they can get to the destination where Zemo is in order to stop his plans. But they don't have time to tell Ross and the others because they got to go through all this like red tape and all this other BS before they even get the green go ahead. And if like it'll be too late while we waiting on them to give us the go ahead, we can just go now and deal with it before it turns into something that is probably won't be containable. Because these things, these Winter Soldiers, are so elite they can easily disappear days, if not weeks, if not years, before they spring up again at the handler's leisure and take people out from the inside out. Can't have that. We got to nip in the bud now, as you saw from the Winter Soldier movie. Can't have them like running amok. But then we see a moment where Tony goes to Queens and he speaks with Peter Parker. And he points out to him like, like I know you're this Spider-Man person that's been active for the past 6 months. So why are you doing this? It's just like, and then it still bothers me, but I guess they kind of save the moment for like the best part in No Way Home. But he doesn't say the iconic. We didn't know at the time. Let's be fair, but he didn't say his iconic "with great power comes great responsibility" line. It's like, if you do the things that I do, then the bad stuff come, and you don't do it. It's like, what is that wordy word salad? And that's another thing I think I personally have like a gripe with, because Spider-Man is my hero, and the fact that you don't even bother. Like I said, we didn't know about No Way Home yet at this time. So it's still pretty raw to me, the fact that you guys giving this word salad crap instead of just saying the line that is pretty much Spider-Man's mantra. Oh, and just a little behind the scenes factoid that in this bedroom scene, I think there's a couple of times, but I think people pretty much remember the one where Peter sit down on the bed and Tony walks over and is like, okay, I sit here, and they left that in, but that is just like it's a funny moment, but that wasn't part of the script. Yeah, he's pretty much like not ad lib, but it was like because there's little markers where people need to be when filming a scene, and Tom Holland, who was new here at the time, was a little off, and so the pretty much told him like, "Yo, screw it, I be here," and it kind of, I guess the Russo brothers thought it was funny, and it kind of played pretty well and seemed pretty natural, so they left it in. But that's kind of like sort of fourth wall breaking. And I think there's another one where I also think it's a bit fourth wall breaking. What was it? God, I forgot it that fast. where Tony mentions like, no, it's my turn to speak, or something like that. Uh, I personally think that's also wasn't part of the script where it's like, Tom was kind of going over, you know, stepping over RDJ's lines a little bit, kind of thing, and he kind of checked them really quick. But like I said, it felt so natural. It just seems like it was naturally part of the scene. It's play for laughs, but you know, it's still well acted. But it was like one of those funny factoids. Um, so uh, Tony sees a little bit of himself in this kid because he managed to create this rinky-dink suit uh, in order to. He's a very smart kid, and he created this kind of rinky-dink suit in order to be a hero and help people. Kind of, it's kind of sort of similar to the whole Mark One armor that helped him escape the cave all those years ago. Uh, but a lot of people make this point where they say like, oh, it's canon that the little boy that Tony saved during that expo in Iron Man 2 was a little Peter Parker, and I personally don't care for that. I don't want it to be like I don't think it's officially canon, but it's just like, why you want to make that a thing? Because people's main complaint, up until No Way Home, Spider-Man is too close to whole Tony Stark, world where he's pretty much Iron Boy instead of his own character. Now, I understand to a degree, but it kind of makes sense in the overall narrative with the MCU because Tony's the one who found out about him. Nobody else knew about this kid. He popped up 6 months ago at this moment. So you figure like, oh, he obviously did his due diligence and research. Like, oh, exactly, pretty good at stopping these criminals. So, I see his heart is the right place. He wants to do good. So like with Sharon Carter, Peter gives kind of sort of like a, very forced, like I said, that word salad dialogue that was given. That's not the great power comes great responsibility. It's just like that kind of feeds into Tony's point of view and making him double down. Whereas like, if I, like I'll be irresponsible if I don't wrangle everybody. So Clint distracts Vision trying to get Wanda out of the building, but clearly he was no match for Vision. He knew that, but is given Wanda enough time to use her powers to push Vision deep into the Earth's crust. Giving them enough time for them to make their escape out of the compound. So eventually, they all end up meeting up at the airport, where it's heartbreaking in a way. When we first watched this movie in the theater, it's almost heartbreaking just to watch. It's kind of like watching your friends and family. It's like, think about like you're at a wedding and yet all these, at least a good portion of friends and family that know each other, and then one argument gets them all fighting, and it's like heartbreaking. It's just like you watch a lot of these people since the first Iron Man movie, and they all work together, stop, evil together, hung out together, and they are fighting like children in a way through causes like you honestly understand both sides of it. And the promo for this film was very well done. Where Steve, Chris Evans is pretty much doing like promo tours in America, while Iron Man's over, or at least RDJ is over in Paris and doing the promo over there. It's pretty much like they're at odds right now. It kind of feels like they really sold this movie, where it's like they've played up like they constantly at odds. They don't even want to be near each other right now because they're so in disagreement, kind of thing. So the promo for this movie was very well done and really sold the movie. Matter of fact, leave a comment below. Let me know like what movie that had like the greatest promo to really sell this movie. Which one did like a great job of selling the movie? Because I think looking back on this, it did an impressive job of selling this movie. I think Infinity War and Endgame, that's like a no brainer because it's a culmination. But like No Way Home also had like a great promo tour. But man, it's like really selling it. Like they did a great job of selling the movie. So a massive fight breaks out, and friend against friend, and you got like an Ant-Man and a Spider-Man. But everybody's not trying to really hurt each other, but they try to, except for Black Panther. He really wants to kill Bucky, despite Bucky saying like, "I didn't kill your father. Why did you run?" And then like Spider-Man, easily handles like Bucky and Falcon, and that this got like a hugest laugh out of the theater because Spider-Man got super strength and super reflexes. He catches Bucky's punch with his metal arm. It's like, is that a metal arm? That's awesome, dude. That entire thing is just so freaking funny because it's like, yeah, Spider-Man is quipping. He's funny. He's young. He got an awesome suit that got the iconic eye movement when he's want to be expressive. Like, you're nailing it. And they played the serious moments and let it sit for a while. It's not undercutted by a lame joke. And then when things need to be funny, they do it in like a good, healthy, balanced way. This movie is doing everything so right, except for blaming them for all these other disasters that by and large wasn't their fault. I remember the how it should have ended videos when they was talking about this movie. They made a joke about changing it from the Sokovia Accords to the Tony Stark Accords because most of it was kind of his fault. It's like, yeah, we'll sign it right away. Just to control him, because he pretty much like the one that is the loose cannon out of all of them. So Ant-Man turns Giant Man, causing like a massive distraction and it's like blowing everybody's freaking mind. I was like, okay, like, is anybody got any kind of special powers you want to burst out right now? Because we can use it. But this is enough to distract them long enough to allow Bucky and Steve to make it to the Quinjet, and Black Widow paralyzing Black Panther long enough for them to make their escape. Vision tries to shoot down Falcon, who's chasing after Rhodey, who's trying to chase after the Quinjet, but he dodges it. It hits Rhodey in the chest, knocking him out and turn off his systems. But Falcon and Tony tries to like swoop down and catch him, but he's falling like a sack of potatoes in the air. But they didn't make it in time, so he's injured. Tony is, pissed, hits uh, 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 Sam with a repulsor blast, knocking him out. Um, Despite him trying to say like, "No, I'm sorry." Uh, so um, when all the uh, rebel heroes are being put to the RAF prison, which is like a Marvel prison where they kept dangerous villains typically. Uh, Tony eventually finds out from investigation that the doctor who's supposed to interrogate Bucky was found murdered in his hotel, and which leads credence to Steve's uh, uh, issues. So he goes to the prison and talks with Sam and agrees to, if he tells him where Steve is going, he will come to him as a friend. So he, not, following the rules that he signed in the Accords, he takes it upon himself to go sneak off to Siberia in this old Hydra base, being followed by Black Panther, mind you. He meets up with Bucky and Steve and says like, look, maybe I found this information. Maybe you're right. I'm not even supposed to be here, so technically I'm breaking no law right now. But let's just call it a truce until we deal with this. So they end up finding Zemo, but instead of finding an army of Winter Soldiers, they find all these tanks containing them, each one with a bullet to the head, which is a shocking display that a lot of people in the theater was like astounded by. They didn't see this coming. Like I said, very well written, and it's how you use like a twist in a proper way. Zemo, which I'm so glad in the Winter Soldier TV show that still remains true to his beliefs, that he believes that superheroes pretty much like a cancer. Why would I want more of you? It's like, no, I don't want none of this stuff, because turns out he is Sokovian, a Sokovian military man who is different from the comics because he, fought for Hydra in the comics. But here in the movies, he is a Sokovian soldier who, I guess, was away while Sokovia was being attacked by Ultron, and he lost his father, his wife, and his children in the attack. And he blames the Avengers. So he came up with this scheme that, okay, I know well, I'll get to it in a second, but he shows other records of the Winter Soldier's activity, and he shows Tony and the others footage that another issue people point out, and it just dawned on me that there's a recording, like a street recording somehow, 1991, mind you, of Howard and Maria Stark's car getting pushed off the road by the Winter Soldier, and thinking it's supposed to have been all this time a regular car accident. Turns out it wasn't an accident. They were holding this briefcase full of some kind of, I guess, I believe it was like something related to the Super Soldier program or something like that. And the Winter Soldier kills both Howard and Maria Stark. And of course, Howard did not realize that was Bucky this whole time. And it was brutal too. It's like there's something that you don't want the kid of those parents to see. And so and it turns out that Rogers knew, but he's trying to keep it from Tony, knowing that you know it's probably best. He thought it was probably best in him not knowing that his best friend was the cause of his parents' death, and he's probably sparing him that pain. Because he wants like at least have like at least a decent memory of his parents, and then they didn't lose their life for something as horrible as this. So a fight breaks out with all three of them. Zemo leaves the compound, but is followed by Black Panther, and he tells them that, like, I knew I can directly deal with the Avengers head on. Better men than me have tried, so I figure, okay, I'll just have them tear each other apart. That is the best way of handling like a super team. So while the fight, like I said, one of the greatest fights in the MCU with Bucky and Cap versus Iron Man. And you see them tossing at each other so expertly, and just, lucky they got super strength. Otherwise, like, you wouldn't be able to really land like a decent punch on like a fully armored man. But it was like an awesome display, but still kind of hard to watch. At least two, or at least three, 2 versus 1 kind of fight going on, and it's just tough to watch. But Zemo, apologized to T'Challa. It's just like, sorry about your father. He was a good man. Who raised a dutiful son. But then he tries to offer himself, but T'Challa stops him. It's like, vengeance has consumed you, consumed me, and it's consumed them, and we gotta stop this. The living ain't done with you yet. So he's, make sure he's being taken in for his crimes. While Iron Man blew off Bucky's metal arm, Cap, and him neutralize Iron Man, and breaks his arc reactor chest piece with his shield. And before walking away, Tony is like, you don't deserve that shield. My father made it. And Steve just leaves it because it's like, what? No, because after all this stuff, what happened, he doesn't feel like he deserves it. He's perfectly fine leaving it behind because it's like, this is it's really messed up, all of it, and we all end up losing ourselves to this whole situation. Matter of fact, nobody knew if the Sokovia Accords was even ratified, or they just kind of left it on the table. It wasn't even brought up until Spider-Man No Way Home, when Daredevil brought it up. And I believe he brought it up in that movie. Because pretty much like the whole entire thing was null and void, pretty much. And I believe after the whole situation with the snap, yet that whole entire, paperwork is pretty much like, it's whatever. I think most people would agree that they should probably address it, directly. It's like, hey, look, let's forget about it. Let's say we forget about it. After y'all helped bring back half the universe, I guess we were wrong about the Sokovia Accords, and we should have let y'all to your devices, kind of thing. So the movie ends with Tony giving Rhodey some leg braces to help him walk, because he's like partially paralyzed after the fall. Rogers helps break out the Avengers that helped him during the fight, and Bucky is taken to Wakanda, where the Wakandans will use their advanced technology to help the Winter Soldier with trying to recover from his brainwashing that was, in his head. And of course, we see, Spider-Man back in Queens. Oh, I forgot the whole back and forth between him and Cap. It's like, where you from? Queens, Brooklyn. And I'm glad they brought that back in Endgame. Like, hey, Queens. But anyway, we see that the whole setup to Homecoming. That was pretty cool. But yeah, that was Marvel Studios Captain America Civil War, and it is a major improvement from what we remember from the Civil War comic, which I don't want to say it was like a complete mess, but I will get into it in a few minutes once I cover the Civil War comic, my review of that. But leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys think of Civil War, all the likes and dislikes. I pretty much covered all the issues that I have with this film as much as as I was trying to go through step by step. But yeah, it's still fun. It's still very well acted. The writing is for at least 95% of the writing is pretty spot on. 90 to 95%. It makes sense. It grossed well over $1 billion in the box office. It's like a $250 million budget, which makes sense for a movie like this to have that budget. If something like Snow White doesn't require a budget like that, or any of the Ghostbusters films doesn't require a budget of this magnitude for something like that. This movie had the magnitude to justify that amount of money, and the box office came in at 1.2 billion in the box office. So that's pretty impressive. But anyway, I will see you guys in a little bit with the comic review. I'll see y'all soon. Peace.